This coin almost ended up in a jar of forgotten change, yet it stunned the world by fetching a price most people can't even imagine. We're talking about a humble 1937 no-mint mark wheat Lincoln penny, a coin born in the shadows of the Great Depression, a coin that today could make someone an instant millionaire. The answer lies buried in history, in mistakes, in mysteries, and in secrets that only the sharpest collectors know how to spot. And once you hear the truth, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. You see, the year was 1937. America was clawing its way out of economic devastation. Every penny mattered, literally. Families saved them in jars, children traded them for candy, and workers held on to them as symbols of survival. In that era, the wheat penny wasn't just small change. It was a lifeline, but inside the U.S. Mint, something unusual happened. Mistakes, die variations, and unnoticed details created a handful of coins that should never have existed. And among them, a few 1937 no-mint mark wheat pennies slipped through, destined to one day shake the coin-collecting world. At first glance, it looked simple. Lincoln's familiar profile, wheat stalks on the back, the date 1937 stamped proudly. But under closer inspection, experts found shocking differences, the kind of differences that turned a single cent into a fortune. And here's where it gets interesting, because collectors started whispering about one thing, a nearly invisible flaw, a detail missed by millions of people over decades, hiding in plain sight. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these pennies, pulled from an old cigar box in the back of a Midwestern attic, went to auction. The bidding started modestly. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. But as word spread, the room grew electric. Hands shot up, bids climbed higher, jaws dropped. By the time the auctioneer's hammer fell, that forgotten penny was worth hundreds of thousands, and then, years later, another surfaced. This time, in pristine condition. Experts called it nearly flawless. And when the final price flashed across the screen, collectors gasped, nearly $2.8 million. For a single copper penny, think about that. Something you could mistake for pocket change, something most people wouldn't even bend down to pick off the street, became a life-changing treasure. The 1937 no-mint mark penny was struck in Philadelphia. Most were ordinary. But some show unusual characteristics: double dies, off-center strikes, weak imprints, and errors caused by the mint's aging equipment. And it's those rare survivors that carry unimaginable value. But here's the chilling part: experts believe there are still some out there. Pennies resting in old coffee cans, trapped in dusty drawers, hidden in forgotten collections passed down through families who have no idea what they're holding. And this is where the story takes a turn. Because even experienced collectors sometimes miss the signs. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth millions can come down to a single detail: the thickness of a number, the doubling of a letter, a subtle misalignment in the strike. Collectors were shocked when one coin showed a doubling so faint it required magnification, yet that faint detail multiplied its value 1,000 times. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins before the public realizes what they're worth, but most people don't know what to look for. That's why you're hearing this story. Because right now, this exact coin could be closer than you think. A man cleaning out his late father's belongings finds an old coin album. Inside, tucked between pages, sits a 1937 wheat penny. He almost gives it away. Almost tosses it into a coin-counting machine at the bank. But a second look, just a second look, changes everything. That coin, overlooked for decades, sells for over $1 million, and here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night: experts say fewer than a dozen truly exceptional 1937 no-mint mark wheat pennies have ever been confirmed. That means the odds of one still hiding in circulation, in collections, or in forgotten boxes are real, but you have to know what to look for. Take the obverse, Lincoln's profile. Check for doubling on the letters, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty." Look closely at the date. Even the tiniest doubling on 1937 can mean the difference between a penny worth a cent and a penny worth millions. Now flip it over. The reverse should show those iconic wheat stalks. But pay attention to the lettering. Look for misalignments, weak strikes, or doubling in 1 cent or United States of America. Any variation here could mean you're holding a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, and condition is everything. A well-circulated coin might fetch thousands. But an uncirculated gem, brilliant, sharp, and nearly flawless, that's the one that can climb past $1 million at auction. One coin, a coin most people would never even notice, carrying a value higher than a luxury home. This is why coin hunting is so addictive, so thrilling. Because every coin you touch has a story. Every coin has a chance, and the 1937 no-mint Mark Wheat penny, it's the perfect example of how a single detail, a single moment of luck, can change everything. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still watching. Families are unknowingly holding on to fortunes. And one day, someone will find the next $1 million miracle. So the next time you see a worn wheat penny at the bottom of a jar, don't ignore it. Don't assume it's worthless. Take a closer look. Because history has shown us that ordinary pennies can hide extraordinary secrets, and this exact penny, the 1937 no-mint Mark Wheat Lincoln penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. A simple, ordinary-looking penny from 1991, the kind you've probably tossed into a jar without thinking twice, but hidden within its copper-plated shell lies a secret that could change someone's life forever. Collectors call it one of the most stunning discoveries of modern American coinage. A penny without a mint mark. Struck in 1991, and somehow, it defied the odds to become one of the most valuable coins ever to slip into circulation, and more importantly, could one of these life-changing treasures be sitting in your pocket right now? The story begins in the United States Mint, over 3 decades ago. The year is 1991. George H. W. Bush is president, gas costs just over $1, and millions of pennies roll off the presses day and night. In Philadelphia, where coins are typically struck without a mint mark, an unusual error began to slip through the cracks. A flaw so subtle, so easy to overlook, that thousands of people likely handled one of these pennies, completely unaware of what they were holding. This was no ordinary production mishap. It wasn't just a double die, or a small misstrike, this was a coin that broke the very pattern of modern minting. A coin that appeared so ordinary, and yet, beneath its surface, it carried the DNA of $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One man, sorting through his pocket change, noticed something odd. The penny in his hand looked just like any other, but under a magnifying glass, the details told a different story. The date, 1991. The missing mint mark, and then, the tiniest irregularities on Lincoln's bust, the sort of flaw only an expert's eye could catch. Collectors were shocked, dealers rushed to verify the authenticity, and when the truth came out, the room fell silent. This wasn't just a penny, this was history. Soon, the first of these coins went to auction. No one knew what to expect. Would it sell for a few thousand? Maybe tens of thousands. The bidding began slowly, but then it started climbing. $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. Collectors watched in disbelief as the price soared. By the time the hammer finally dropped, the coin had shattered all expectations, nearly $1 million for a penny that could have been lost in a couch cushion. And yet, here's the real kicker. Most people don't even know this coin exists. It hides in plain sight, blending in with the pennies we spend every single day, and if you're not careful, you could spend one without ever realizing the fortune you just let slip away. But this isn't just about money, this is about the dream that one small discovery can turn an ordinary life into something extraordinary, that somewhere out there, in a forgotten jar or an old dresser drawer, a coin worth up to $1 million is waiting to be found. The attention to detail is everything, because on the surface, these pennies look like any other 1991 issue. Lincoln's profile stares forward, "In God we trust," arcs above, "Liberty" rests at the side, and the date sits cleanly at the bottom right. But here's where things get fascinating. Unlike Denver pennies with their D mint mark, the Philadelphia Mint didn't use one. So at first glance, all 1991 Philadelphia pennies appear to be no mint mark coins, and yet, only a fraction of them carry the minting irregularities that make collectors go wild. A double die. A striking error. A microscopic flaw in the lettering. These are the details that separate a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth $1 million. The vast majority of people will never notice. They'll let the coin slip through their hands. They'll trade it away for a stick of gum, and they'll never realize the treasure they just lost. This is why collectors obsess, this is why dealers scour endless boxes of pennies, because every once in a while, someone gets lucky, someone pulls a coin from circulation, and suddenly, their entire world changes. Imagine it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. One woman's childhood coin jar turned into a fortune. Every discovery sparks whispers across the numismatic community, every auction fuels the fire. The answer lies in careful, methodical inspection. First, check the date, 1991. Second, make sure there's no mint mark beneath the date, no D, no S. Third, look for irregularities, doubling in the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust, faint distortions around the numbers, or even weak striking on Lincoln's profile. Finally, condition is king. That a coin in near perfect shape, sharp details, minimal scratches, vibrant luster, can command astronomical prices. But don't be fooled, many people confuse common 1991 pennies for the rare ones. And some sellers prey on the hopeful, passing off ordinary coins as treasures. The real $1 million pennies are authenticated by experts, graded by professionals, and recognized by the coin market. So here's the truth you need to hear. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. It could be in a forgotten jar in your closet, or tucked away in your father's old coin collection, and if it carries the right details, it isn't worth 1 cent. It isn't worth $1. It's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up tossed aside as just another penny, but it stunned the coin world when it sold for over $1 million. Yes, a simple 1979 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that most people wouldn't look twice at, became a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, and the truth behind it is something most collectors still don't know. It's 1979. Gas is cheap, music is changing, and the US Mint is working overtime. Billions of Lincoln pennies are pouring out into circulation, most of them, ordinary. Forgettable. Worth just 1 cent but hidden among the masses, a few mistakes, a few accidents, and a few mysterious survivors slipped through, and those tiny details are the difference between a coin worth a penny, and a coin worth over $1 million. Collectors were shocked when one of these pennies, pulled from circulation, revealed something extraordinary. At first glance, it looked normal. But under a magnifying glass, the secrets began to show. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned experts. You see, the 1979 Lincoln penny was struck in Philadelphia, and that means it carried no mint mark. For most years, that was normal. But in 1979, unusual things happened on the presses. Some dies cracked. Others misaligned. A handful of coins showed doubling on Lincoln's features or the inscriptions, and these rare errors sent shockwaves through the collecting world. One man discovered such a coin in his pocket change. He didn't think much of it at first, until he noticed the Liberty was doubled. Dealers told him it might fetch a few $100s. But when it hit the auction block, the bidding war was ferocious. The final hammer price, enough to change his life forever. But here's the twist most people don't know, it wasn't just the doubling. Some 1979 pennies have another secret, a rare, high-grade strike that survived decades without a single scratch, mint state, brilliant red, and flawless. Collectors fight tooth and nail for these, because once you find perfection in a coin that's been out in circulation for decades, you found treasure, and that treasure can be worth over $1 million. Now, pause for a second. Think about that. A coin you've probably spent without thinking, could be the one that changes everything. That's where the real story begins. In the late 70s, the mint was transitioning technology. New presses, new die designs, and immense pressure to produce billions of coins fast. Mistakes were inevitable. Some coins were struck off-center. Others had broad strikes, stretched and distorted rims. Some bore dramatic doubling on the date or the motto, "In God We Trust." And in the rarest cases, pennies were struck on the wrong planchet, using blanks intended for dimes. Imagine holding a penny that looks thin, silver-colored, and completely out of place. That coin is worth a fortune. Collectors were left speechless when one such off-metal error surfaced in pristine condition. The headlines read, "1 cent piece, worth over $1 million." But here's where it gets even more dramatic. Not all $1 million coins look strange at first glance. Some look ordinary, perfectly ordinary, until you notice the tiniest detail. One collector nearly spent his 1979 penny at a gas station. But something caught his eye. a strange shine, a flawless surface, no marks, no scratches that he sent it to be graded, and the results shook him. Mint State 68. Nearly perfect, that coin went from pocket change to a miracle worth hundreds of thousands, and had it been just one grade higher, it could have crossed the $1 million threshold. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Think of the emotion, a single coin, forgotten in a drawer, turning into a life-changing discovery. Stories like this are why coin collectors never give up searching. But what makes the 1979 no-mint mark penny so mysterious is its deceptive simplicity. Unlike rare coins that flaunt dramatic errors, this one hides in plain sight. Your penny might look like every other 1979 cent, until it doesn't. Collectors whisper about the red gems, coins that still glow with fiery copper luster, untouched by circulation. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them, because once these vanish into private collections, they may never be seen again. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector, digging through an old jar, pulled out a coin that looked brand new. Did he send it for grading? When the auctioneer's hammer fell, he walked away with more money than he ever imagined possible from a single penny. But what happened next kept the coin world buzzing for years. Rumors spread that a handful of 1979 pennies were struck with proof-like qualities, brilliant and mirrored, though never intended for collectors. That if you're lucky enough to hold one of these, you're sitting on a hidden treasure, and this is the key: knowing how to spot them. 1979, no mint mark. If it has a D or S, it's not the rare one. Second, look closely at Liberty and In God We Trust. Any doubling, even subtle, is a major clue. Finally, the condition. If your coin looks brand new, flawless, glowing red, it could be worth a fortune. Common mistake collectors make: spending it before checking. Most people think it's just a penny. But that penny could be your ticket to $1 million. So tonight, when you open that old coin jar, when you empty your change from your pocket, take one extra look, because hiding among the ordinary could be the extraordinary, and the difference between them is a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a jar of forgotten pennies, yet it stunned the world when one sold for nearly $1 million. And here's the shocking part: it was an ordinary 1967 Lincoln penny, the kind most people would overlook without a second thought. But this is no ordinary story. This is the tale of a coin that looks simple on the surface, yet carries a secret powerful enough to change someone's life forever. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers chase it. And ordinary people, just like you, have held it in their hands, without even realizing they were holding a fortune. The year was 1967. America was changing, the Vietnam War raged on, Martin Luther King Jr. marched for civil rights, and the U.S. Mint was struggling with a crisis of its own. Just a year earlier, the Mint had eliminated mint marks to discourage coin hoarding. That meant every penny struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco in 1967 looked the same: no mint mark. To most, that decision seemed insignificant. But for collectors, it opened the door to one of the most mysterious and valuable pennies in history. Millions of pennies pouring out of the mint, each carrying Abraham Lincoln's profile, each appearing nearly identical. Yet hidden among those ordinary coins were a few struck with errors so rare, so shocking, that today they can fetch up to $1.2 million. And here's the twist: these weren't flamboyant errors you could spot a mile away. No, they were subtle. Barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. A doubled image on the date. An unusually sharp strike. A copper planchet with just the slightest impurity. To the untrained eye, it was just another penny. But to those who understood its secret, it was a golden ticket. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector, sorting through a simple batch of pocket change, noticed something strange. The numbers in 1967 looked off, almost like they were stamped twice. He sent it for evaluation, not expecting much. But when the coin came back, experts confirmed what few had ever seen: a double-die penny from 1967, preserved in extraordinary condition. Its estimated value? Over $1 million. One moment it was a penny worth a single cent. The next, it was worth more than most people's homes. That discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Suddenly, collectors everywhere were on high alert, but here's where the story gets even more fascinating. Because 1967 wasn't just any year, it was a year when the mint, overwhelmed by demand and political pressure, cut corners. Coins were rushed, dies were overused, and mistakes slipped through. And those mistakes are worth their weight in gold. Picture yourself holding a handful of old change. Your fingers slide past dimes, quarters, nickels, until one penny catches your eye. At first, you're not sure why. But then you notice it. The slight doubling on Lincoln's eye. The faint doubling in the word liberty. And suddenly your heart pounds, because you realize you might be holding $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked when these rare 1967 pennies started surfacing at auctions. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. Stories began spreading, ordinary families cashing in coins that had sat in jars for decades, only to discover life-changing treasures. First, understand this: not every 1967 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only face value, unless they're in pristine condition. But what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary are tiny, hidden details. Check the date carefully. Look for doubling. The numbers, 1967, may appear thicker or slightly overlapping, like a ghost image. Inspect Lincoln's profile, especially his eye and the letters in Liberty. In the rarest examples, the doubling is clear and unmistakable. Next, condition matters. A coin in poor shape, scratched or worn, might only fetch a few $100s. But a coin in brilliant, uncirculated condition, blazing red copper, almost like it was struck yesterday, that's where the $1 million magic lies. But wait, there's another twist. Some 1967 pennies were struck on experimental planchets, leftover metal blanks not intended for circulation. These oddities are so scarce that experts believe only a handful exist. One of these, when authenticated, could easily command 7 figures at auction, and yet, most people overlook them. They spend them. They toss them into change jars. They let them sit in drawers, never realizing that fortune was in their hands the whole time. This is why coin hunting is so addictive. Because every time you pick up a penny, every time you open an old coffee can of change, there's a chance, however small, that you're holding one of these extraordinary treasures. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. The majority of these $1 million 1967 pennies have never been found. Experts believe they're still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone bold enough to look closely. Think about that. Right now, there could be one sitting in a dusty jar in someone's garage. Another could be buried in the back of a desk drawer. Another could be resting in a cash register at a gas station. Each one, a potential life-changing discovery. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yours could too. So how do you make sure you don't miss it? Slow down. Examine every penny from 1967. Hold it under the light. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Look for doubling. Look for sharp, crisp details. Look for that blazing copper shine that tells you the coin has survived untouched for decades. Don't let impatience rob you of opportunity. Remember, the difference between a 1-cent penny and $1 million treasure can be as small as the faintest doubling on a single digit. Collectors say finding one is like winning the lottery. Dealers call it the holy grail of modern pennies. And yet, it could be sitting quietly, waiting for you. Right now, the 1967 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It's a story. A reminder that fortune can hide in the smallest, most ordinary places. That a single overlooked detail can turn copper into gold. So the next time you hold a 1967 penny, don't dismiss it. Don't spend it without a second glance. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a penny so ordinary looking, so common, that most people never give it a second glance, yet in the world of collectors, it has the power to change a life forever. The 1971 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny. It's small. It's copper. It's something you may have touched 100 times in your life, but hidden within this simple coin is a story so shocking, so unbelievable, that dealers, collectors, and treasure hunters alike are still chasing it today, because this coin, under the right conditions, has crossed the auction block for as much as $1.30 million. And the truth is, most people don't even know why. Imagine it for a moment. You're emptying your pockets. A few coins tumble across the table. You glance at them without a thought. A penny, dull and worn, from the year 1971. You nearly toss it aside. But what if that 1 cent, that single coin, was the key to unimaginable wealth? This is not a dream. This is not a legend. This is a real coin, and its story will leave you questioning every single penny you've ever let slip through your fingers. But how could a penny from 1971, a year when millions upon millions were struck, possibly be worth over $1 million? The answer lies in a shocking detail. A secret that hides in plain sight. A minting mystery that stunned the entire coin world, because in 1971, at the Philadelphia Mint, a number of Lincoln pennies rolled off the presses with errors so rare, so incredible, that they would go on to rewrite the record books. Some had doubled dies, where the date, the lettering, even Lincoln's profile showed ghost-like shadows, perfectly doubled impressions that should never have left the mint. Others were struck in unusual conditions, with crisp, almost perfect detail, becoming the envy of collectors for decades. And then there were the survivors. The coins that somehow remained untouched, never scratched, never worn, surviving in pristine condition, coins that looked as if they had been frozen in time. Those are the ones that broke the $1 million barrier. Collectors couldn't believe it. Auctioneers could barely keep up. A single penny, a coin that costs almost nothing to make, selling for sums that rival the price of luxury cars, houses, even entire businesses. But here's where the story gets even more gripping, because the 1971 no-mint mark penny doesn't just have one variety. No, it hides a handful of secrets, and only the sharpest eyes can uncover them. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But tilt it under the light, and suddenly the date explodes with shadowed edges. The letters, Liberty, and, In God We Trust, split into ghost-like twins, and in that moment, you realize, you're not holding an ordinary coin. You're holding a miracle. Dealers began whispering. Collectors rushed to check their jars and drawers. Stories spread of people pulling a 1971 penny from circulation, only to discover it was one of these rare treasures. Some were worth thousands. Others tens of thousands. And then came the elite few, the near-perfect, untouched examples, that fetched sums no one could have imagined. One coin alone pushed past $1.3 million at auction, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Suddenly, ordinary Americans, retirees, workers, even children digging through their piggy banks, began looking twice at their pennies, because this wasn't just a hobby anymore. This was a chance at life-changing fortune. Picture it. One man finds a coin like this at the bottom of a coffee can. Another discovers one in loose change at the grocery store. A woman nearly spends hers at a gas station before a sharp-eyed attendant recognizes it. Overnight, everyday people were stepping into the spotlight of numismatic history, but the mystery doesn't stop there. Because the 1971 penny also carries another layer of intrigue. Philadelphia pennies from this year carried no mint mark. That means the only way to tell if you've got one of the valuable ones is by looking closely, painfully closely, at every detail, and that's where countless people make mistakes. They overlook the doubling. They fail to recognize the sharpness of strike. They dismiss coins that, if properly graded and authenticated, could be worth a small fortune. Collectors say the number one rule is simple: never assume your 1971 penny is ordinary. Because hidden beneath that copper surface might be one of the most valuable errors ever struck. What tiny detail separates a penny worth 1 cent from one worth over $1 million? The secret lies in the doubling. Look at the date. That 1971 should show a clear doubling, especially on the 7 and 1. Check Liberty. If the letters seem shadowed, doubled, or almost vibrating under the light, you may have a true treasure. And inspect In God We Trust. On the rare doubled die, the motto appears doubled with eerie perfection, but condition matters just as much. A coin with scratches, dents, or heavy wear might still fetch hundreds, even thousands. But a flawless coin, One preserved as if it had never been touched, could reach the unimaginable. That's how one piece shattered expectations and sold for over $1 million, think about that. A coin meant for pocket change, struck in the billions, hiding among everyday pennies for decades, now commanding a fortune that could change someone's life forever. It's a story so unbelievable that if it weren't documented in auction records, no one would even believe it. And here's the part that should make your heart race. These coins are still out there, they weren't all found. They weren't all sold. Many are still buried in coin jars, tucked into collections, or sitting unnoticed in the bottom of a drawer, and one of them might be yours. Collectors are still hunting. Dealers are still paying. The dream is still alive, because every single 1971 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny holds a question. Is it just a penny, or is it $1 million miracle? So the next time you spot that copper glow, don't ignore it. Hold it up to the light. Study it carefully. Look for the doubling. Check the details, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it changed someone's life forever, because what looked like an ordinary 1960 Lincoln penny, actually sold for nearly $1.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny. A coin most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the sidewalk, became a treasure worth more than most people's homes. And here's the chilling part. This exact penny could be hiding in your pocket change right now. So how did it happen? Why is the 1960 mint Mark Lincoln penny so rare, so valuable, and so mysterious, that collectors all over the country are desperately hunting for it? The story begins in Denver, back in 1960. It was a time when America was booming, the economy was strong, the space race was heating up, and the Lincoln cent had already been circulating for decades. No one thought twice about the pennies they used for a cup of coffee or to pay the toll on the highway, but in 1960, something strange happened inside the Denver mint, something the workers never expected. As the presses pounded out millions of Lincoln cents, a tiny error slipped through. An error so small, so almost invisible, that most people never even noticed, yet that mistake created one of the most valuable pennies in American history, the coin that would later shake the entire numismatic world, the 1960 small date penny. You see, in 1960, the mint made two different date designs. A large date version, and a small date version, just a subtle variation in the size and shape of the numbers in the date, but that tiny difference was everything. Collectors were shocked when they realized just how scarce the Denver small date version really was. Only a limited number slipped out into circulation, and the hunt for them began. But here's where the story gets even more dramatic. One man discovered one of these rare small date 1960 pennies sitting unnoticed in his pocket change. He almost spent it on a pack of gum, but instead, he took a closer look. That single decision turned a single cent into a fortune, because when his coin later hit the auction block, the bidding war stunned everyone in the room. Prices climbed higher and higher, collectors refused to back down, and when the final hammer dropped, this penny had soared to over $1 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny, something most people ignore, suddenly transformed into a millionaire's treasure. Why would someone pay over $1 million for just one coin? The answer lies in the detail. The small date variety is incredibly rare. On the 1960 penny, the 0 in the date is much smaller and slimmer compared to the large date. The 1 in 1960 stands taller, and the numbers seem tighter together. And then, there's the doubling. Some of these coins show dramatic doubled dies, where the numbers in the date or the mint mark appear doubled under magnification. That tiny doubling error makes collectors go wild. But wait, it gets even more unbelievable. Not only do these rare varieties exist, but some are still out there. Hiding. In jars. In drawers. In boxes of old change sitting in people's basements, and every time one surfaces, the coin world holds its breath. Dealers rush to get their hands on it, collectors fight tooth and nail to own it, and the value climbs higher and higher. But what happened next stunned even the most experienced coin experts. In recent years, a pristine 1960 small date penny in unbelievable condition was certified by a grading company. Its luster was untouched, its details razor sharp. When the results came in, the room went silent. It had been given one of the highest grades possible, and when it sold, it brought in close to $1.40 million. One man's penny jar became $1 million miracle. First, check the date. If the numbers, 1960, look small, especially the 0, you might be holding the rare small date version. Next, check the mint mark. It must have the small d below the date. For Denver, finally, look carefully under magnification. If you see doubling on the numbers or the mint mark, your heart might just skip a beat. But here's the danger: many people mistake the large date for the small date. They think they've struck it rich, only to be disappointed. So look closely, compare carefully, and never assume, because the difference between an ordinary penny and $1 million treasure comes down to the tiniest detail. And that's what makes this story so powerful. A penny most people wouldn't even glance at, a penny nearly spent without a second thought, became one of the greatest coin discoveries of the century. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you dump out a jar of old change, remember this story, because your life could change in an instant. Point 1 Penny. Point 1 Discovery. Point 1 Miracle. The 1960 D mint mark Lincoln penny could be sitting quietly in your drawer right now, waiting. And if you find it, that single penny could be worth over $1 million.